Would a 4066 cause Ahsoka to be sent back in time? Part 3. Ahsoka stood in the center of the High Council chamber, Sora Bulq's name still resonating off the walls. She wasn't sure if the council was expecting her to do or say anything, but she was sure that they wouldn't like it if she expressed the panic and dread that started racing through her. It was only silent for a moment long before Master Windu stood and told Ahsoka to follow him, that he would take her to meet her master. He guided her into the elevator of the spire, then through the temple, a maze of corridors and rooms that she and most other Jedi had memorized. Master Windu led her into the living area of the Masters and guided her directly to a room whose door was just like the rest. Ahsoka had once found it hard navigating through the temple, and had often gone lost when she was assigned as Anakin's apprentice, trying to find his room and hers. It hadn't helped that they had been more often on the front line rather than in the temple though, but Ahsoka had eventually figured it out with Anakin's help, who had seemed all too eager to allow her to get lost before finally finding her way, with a little bit of his help. Master Windu knocked on the door before letting himself in. Inside was a room that looked like all the others, except in this one sat a weak way staring at a holopad. He looked up and promptly stood when he saw who was entering. Master Windu and Master Bulq greeted each other before Master Bulq turned towards her and Master Windu introduced them. He told her that this was Sora Bulq, her master, explaining that the main reason they had paired them was because he was one of the greatest duelists in the Order, even rivaling himself, and was the co-developer of Vaapad. Ahsoka bowed and greeted him, telling him that it was an honor to be his Padawan. He smiled back and warmly greeted her as well, urging her to be at ease around him. He was so positive and joyful that it unnerved her. It was convincing, like he hadn't fallen to the dark side yet. At least, if it wasn't for that tinge of darkness that she sensed from him. Ahsoka sensed the darkness in Anakin before, something that he was thankfully free from now. But he had only used it as a tool, something he had demonstrated. He had shown her that sometimes, tapping into the dark side was necessary to survive and achieve the best outcome, as long as you didn't let it consume you. She learned that the light side was all about life and peace, while the dark was death and destruction. That one had to use the dark side in order to fight effectively, especially in a gruesome war, and that the dark side had to be present for there to be balance, like the cycle of life. Ahsoka realized that Master Bulq must have been tempted when he was helping Master Windu create Vaapad, and he had likely given in the urge. Master Windu, excusing himself, interrupted her thoughts, and, as he left, Master Bulq beckoned her to follow him to the table inside the room. He sat down where he was sitting before, beckoning her again to sit across from him, which she did. He told her that they should start by getting to know each other a little first by some simple questions. He told her who his master had been, what he liked to do, and how helping create Vaapad was his greatest achievement, along with a few other things. He then asked her what she liked to do, wanted to do, and wanted to achieve. Ahsoka answered as honestly as she dared, and told him her previous goals when she had been first made a Padawan. They talked for a bit more before Master Bulq told her that upon being informed of him receiving her as Padawan, he had also requested that they have a adjoining room so that he could better train her. Ahsoka was unsettled by this, still not completely trusting him, but relented when he asked if she would like to see it as she was curious. He guided her to a door which she hadn't noticed on the right side of the room and opened it for her. She stepped inside and, well, the room looked similar to the previous one at the temple when she had been Anakin's apprentice, though they were of course not all connected. It was small with plain walls, and the sole window looked out on the galactic city skyline. The only furniture was a simple bed and desk, like in most rooms, and then what had to be the door that led to the hallway on the right. She turned around to Master Bulq, who stood in the doorway and thanked him, to which he just chuckled, waving his hand dismissively, telling her that he had been envious of masters who had asked for adjoining rooms when he was a Padawan, so he figured that he would give her one. He sounded genuine, and Ahsoka started to think that he hadn't actually completely fallen yet, that he was just experiencing emotions like any sentient should, and it made Ahsoka more at ease. He continued, saying that he would help her move over a few things here, but then he would give her the rest of the day to get accustomed to her new life and status, and that she could do what she wanted, though he did want her to at least have dinner with him. Ahsoka told him that she understood and thanked him again, before walking by his side back to the youngling dorm room of her clan. When they arrived, she found that most of her clan was there, which was a mixed blessing. Word had most likely spread of her being made a Padawan ahead of them, something that would be confirmed by Master Bulq's presence. and it only further ostracized her from them. She didn't want Master Bulq to see this. However, she also wanted to at least tell Far the news herself, even if she knew already. She didn't want to be separated from her, but understood that it was necessary and wanted their friendship to continue. Ahsoka spotted Far by her bed, and as soon as she saw her, they quickly closed the distance and embraced. Far congratulated Ahsoka and was genuinely happy for her, which made Ahsoka happy as well. Ahsoka introduced Master Bulq to her before telling her that she would seek her out whenever she was in the temple, and would try to talk to her via comlink as well when out on missions. That got Far excited, and she made Ahsoka promise to tell her all about the world she went to and the people she met. After their rushed conversation, Far helped Ahsoka gather a few belongings, mostly clothes. Then with a final hug and goodbye, they parted ways for the time being. Ahsoka was thankful that Master Bulq had patiently waited for her. Though looking at him, it appeared he found their interaction amusing, which made Ahsoka slightly embarrassed. For the rest of the day, Ahsoka got herself comfortable in her new accommodations and tried to become closer to Master Bulq, which seemed to make him happy. She knew that she needed to form a bond with him, but she was still a bit wary, so she hoped that talking with him would bring her peace, and it somewhat did. As she lay on her new bed that night, she wondered that perhaps this is why Mirai only appeared recently, to give her comfort for this new challenge she was going to face. For the next several weeks, Master Bulq stayed in the Jedi Temple with Ahsoka and tested her, assessing her skills, level, and capabilities. Once finished and appearing impressed with the results, he announced that he was going to take her on a tour of sorts across the upper levels of Coruscant. They set out first thing in the morning the next day, and the entire thing was uneventful. She already knew nearly the entire upper levels of Coruscant, and even some of the depths from when she had first hid and lived down there. Master Bulq didn't take her down there, which she understood why, but knowing now that the Jedi Order couldn't even bring peace and safety to their own backyard just showed how corrupt and complacent the Order had become. After his tour, Master Bulq, who deemed that she was ready, started taking Ahsoka on almost every mission the Jedi Council gave him, of course exempting her from the most dangerous ones, though there's practically none of those. They did find themselves unexpectedly having to defend themselves and sometimes others on a few occasions, but thankfully none of those instances were too severe or lasted long. Master Bulq used them to further teach Ahsoka. When they weren't on missions, Master Bulq often took Ahsoka to worlds that he either deemed needed help or guidance, or worlds that are unique and unnatural to help Ahsoka familiarize herself with the vastness and uniqueness of the galaxy. It was on one of these worlds that Master Bulq admitted to her that it was his wish to pass on his greatest achievement to her, and teach her the variant of Form 7 that he and Master Windu had created. He wanted to teach her how to use a pod. Ahsoka was taken back and hesitant as he continued, saying that it was risky as she had to overcome the dark side and not let it control her, something that might be difficult especially since she was still young. But she was already well versed in all the other lightsaber forms, so there wasn't much else he could teach her using those. He desperately wanted to pass on his wisdom, but would only do so if she wished for it. Ahsoka knew the risks. The slight taint of the dark side emanating from Bulq was proof of it, but she had overcome the dark side on many occasions and had, over the years, become well balanced in the Force, so that wasn't much of a concern for her. What concerned her was that Master Bulq was not only willing, but eager to teach her something that was supposed to be a dangerous secret form that Master Windu had helped create, something that he wasn't even asking permission from to teach others, and a child at that. Still, Ahsoka was curious and wanted to learn everything she could to get the upper hand in any situation. So, albeit hesitantly, she accepted Master Bulq's offer, which got him excited. From then on, he began teaching her the basics of a pod and the techniques behind it, coaching her through the tough and arduous training conditioning. He explained that Vaapad was a state of mind rather than just a fighting style, one that allowed the wielder to channel their inner darkness into the duel. After several of these sessions, Ahsoka noticed that he only instructed and taught her when they were past the mid-rim, and that concerned her. But she was already infatuated with the form and the challenge of learning it, making her not want to stop. Ahsoka quickly mastered the movement of the form, which appeared unconnected, and memorized the techniques needed to channel her inner darkness. But she still had to prove that she could channel her darkness and do it while using the form. For this, she had to connect her inner darkness, her inner strength and emotions, and use them to fuel her but not let them consume her. She used powerful bursts of the Force while attacking and enjoy the fight, relishing in victory, but keeping a calm and clear mind. Master Bulq only wanted her to practice this when in his presence, but Ahsoka was cocky, and did it whenever she could, though she did limit it to only when she was outside the Jedi Temple. Over the months that turned into years, with years 3630 ATC beginning, she began to get the hang of the form, though she had recently realized that she had been coming dangerously close to the dark side because of her arrogance, and started to practice with her inner darkness in moderation, understanding that she had been seeking out far too often. Master Bulq didn't seem to notice any of this though, instead praising her for her rapid progress and control. She had gone from not being able to understand his demonstrations to being able to distinguish his every move, even with his movements being a blur. They had become closer and a bond had formed between them, though Ahsoka still forced her to be wary around him, not wanting to be caught off guard and hurt if he suddenly betrayed her in the Jedi Order. Besides that, she had met Anakin on missions, and on the rare chance that they were in the temple together, they sparred and talked as much as possible. She was also in near constant contact with Fari, contacting her every few days, constantly seeking out of the temple. This had become harder as Fari had recently gone through the Padawan trials, and a Keldor Jedi Knight, Warren Dal, had chosen her as an apprentice, but they still talked and hung out whenever possible. Ahsoka was enjoying life, with her now being freer than she had ever been during the war, and with Mariah flying by her, she was finally beginning to feel at ease and at peace. Master Bulq was hands off with his training as well, wanting her to try things before he got involved with teaching her and show her how it's done. As it took her across the galaxy, she saw what it had been like before the war, both the good and bad, the beauty and the pain. It made her sad seeing the desolation of the Outer Rim, but felt good helping them Master Bulq, and it brought her comfort seeing how peaceful most of the worlds were. After one such aid mission, Master Bulq and Ahsoka were taking off when a transmission from Master Windu came in, telling them to go to Kellock's, and to scout in preparation for a Jedi strike team. Master Bulq asked what was going on, and Master Bulq quickly filled him in, telling him that Master Gallia had been attacked and taken by Count Dooku while she was on Alderaan. They had tracked them down to the planet of Kellock's. Master Bulq argued that he had Ahsoka with him, but Master Windu cut him off, saying that they were the nearest Jedi by far, and arresting Count Dooku and saving Master Gallia was more important than safely a Padawan. Master Bulq glumly told him that he understood before ending the communication. Taking a glance back at Ahsoka, she could see the guilt in his eyes as he told her that she would have to accompany him in the Jedi strike team, but he hoped that it would be solved peacefully. Looking back at the controls, he quickly flew the shuttle out of the planet's atmosphere, putting Kellock's coordinates in, and jumped into hyperspace. He spent the entire trip giving Ahsoka some final advice on what to do in combat situations when losing, or when facing a Force user, telling her that she should focus on surviving, even if it meant running away. Ahsoka tried to listen but found it hard. She probably knew more about combat than Master Bulq anyway, and she didn't want to run away either. Instead, she mostly wondered what was going on. She didn't remember something like this happened before, and it's still over a year before the first battle of Geonosis and the war was to begin. She found it difficult to concentrate on even this as, though the possibility of combat wasn't anything new to her, she was still on edge and her heart was racing. They soon arrived over Kellock's, and Master Bulq flew in space for a bit before quickly finding the planet's surface and landing the shuttle. Ahsoka obediently followed him off as he told her that he had sensed Force sensitive nearby, and there appeared to be a group of structures ahead. They walked to within sight of them before Master Bulq told her to wait for him while he scouted further. Ahsoka wanted to argue with him that she was better at scouting than him, but held it in, and only nodded. Her trust in him had grown, but she still wasn't completely sure if he still wanted to join Count Dooku, especially with him being right there. She watched him till he disappeared before climbing a tree to not only wait, but to be safe while she reached out with the Force. When she reached out, she felt several Force sensors inside the compound, though most of them were weak in the Force on the dark side emanating from them. She identified the dark presence of Count Dooku, as well as the only light side presence of Master Gallia, both Force signatures she had previously felt. She also sensed Master Bulq's dark tinged Force presence, but thankfully, he was still outside the compound. She stayed like that until she felt Master Bulq returning, before coming back to her senses and jumping down from the tree. When Master Bulq came into view, he told her that he had confirmed the location of Master Gallia, and now needed to go back to the ship to inform Master Windu of the coordinates. She followed him back to the ship, standing back while he contacted Master Windu, He told them that the Jedi strike team was on its way and that they were to wait for them. Ahsoka wasn't sure how long they waited in silence, but soon enough she heard several ships approach their position. She followed Master Bulq out of the shuttle again as several more shuttles and starfighters landed around them. As they disembarked their ships, Ahsoka was in awe at the number of Jedi that Master Windu had brought and wondered if she was missing something. There are easily over 100 Jedi here, and they were only going to go arrest Count Dooku and arrest Master Galea? However, there was no time for her to ask, as Master Windu appeared and began making his way towards the compound in the distance, with Master Bulq by his side and the rest of the Jedi naturally following. Ahsoka rushed up to the head of the group of the Jedi to be by her master as they walked through the wilderness before entering the compound. The entrance was a large archway rather than a doorway, and the entire place was eerily silent. After several more archways and small clearings, all the while passing by dozens of doors, reached a large courtyard, one big enough that they could have landed all the shuttles and fighters there. As walking into it, Ahsoka felt something off, and apparently so could Master Bulq. Turning, he grabbed her shoulder, bent down and softly told her to go back to the ship. Ahsoka, uneasy, nodded, and turned around, though she wasn't entirely planning on staying on the shuttle. But before she could make her way through the Jedi strike team, battle droids were marching through the doors and passageways that surrounded the courtyard, quickly blocking the way that they had come. When they came into sight, all the Jedi ignited their lightsabers and Ahsoka followed suit. Figures appeared on the roof as well, only confirmed their identity as they ignited their crimson lightsabers. Count Dooku walked out a moment later, ahead of the strike team on the balcony. He told them to surrender, and he would let them live. Master Windu shot back that instead he should be the one surrendering and face the consequences of his actions. Count Dooku simply told them to just surrender if they changed their minds, and, with a wave of his hand, the battle droids, who had by now filled the courtyard, all started firing. Ahsoka and the Jedi around her started swinging their lightsabers, attempting to block the blaster shots, but it wasn't long before Ahsoka felt the first Jedi die. Glancing over, she just caught the side of his body hitting the ground before she had to focus on the battle. She worked hard to deflect the droids' blast shots back at them, destroying them, and she noticed that several of the Jedi were doing the same or just charging at them. Though they were destroying dozens of droids, the courtyard only seemed to become more packed with them, and Jedi started to rapidly fall. The Jedi soon were no longer in a group, instead spread out, fighting their own battles. Ahsoka's senses screamed at her and she got her lightsaber up in time as a crimson lightsaber swung towards her with killing intent. It was only then that she realized that the dark acolytes had also joined in and were picking off Jedi as well. She quickly engaged this dark acolyte, and though he was bigger than her, she was more skilled and proficient in the Force. On top of that, as he attacked her, she could tell that he underestimated her. When their blades locked, she gave him the impression of buckling under him, which made him press harder. However, she ducked out of his deadlock, and as she passed and he stumbled forward, she decapitated him with her Shoto. She didn't have time to think of the life she just took as more battle droids continued to flood the plaza, and, seeing a column coming through the doorway, Ahsoka threw her Shoto at them, sending through all of them before pulling it back toward the Force. She didn't know how long they had been fighting, but she had long gone numb to the feeling of Jedi dying around her and the fact that she was fighting over their bodies. She used everything she had to fight and must have destroyed hundreds of droids along with killing several more dark acolytes. But it seemed never ending and the Jedi Force had already been greatly diminished. She herself didn't know how much longer she could hold out, as her body and arms especially had already long since gone numb. Was this the end? Were she and the rest of the Jedi here just going to die? She caught sight of Master Windu gathering up those that were still alive, and she desperately far away to them, battle droids still filling the plaza. She got there in time to hear Master Windu say that they were going to attempt to break out before they dropped from exhaustion. But before they could continue, the sound of engines could be heard. Looking up, they just managed to catch sight of a Delta 7 Aether sprite fly past. Several more followed, and they began strafing the buildings surrounding the courtyard, destroying them, blocking the entrances into the courtyard. The surviving Jedi seemed to get rejuvenated from this, as, for the first time, the droids around them began to thin as they destroyed them, and no more dark acolytes appeared. It all seemed to end abruptly, as the final droids were cut down, and an unnerving calm settled over the courtyard. The surviving Jedi, though still on guard, began to wander amongst the carnage, chucking their fallen for life. Ahsoka joined them. Moments later, several Jedi crested the rubble joined them, being led by Grandmaster Yoda. It was only then that Ahsoka started to let her guard down and look around at the devastation. But instead of looking down at the dead, she tried to look at the survivors that were coming through the wreckage. She started counting them, but stopped short. Instead of quickly scanning the area, her master, Master Bulq, someone who was easily recognizable as a weakway, was nowhere to be seen. Back on Coruscant, Darth Sidious sat in his darkening office, thinking of his faltering plans. Skywalker had changed. Instead of being lonely and an outcast in the Jedi Order, there were those that welcomed him, and anytime he left the temple, he was always eager to get back. Instead of him becoming close to Amidala, he merely did what he was told and didn't pursue a relationship with her, keeping a healthy distance. He felt that he was losing Skywalker, though he refused to admit that he had completely lost him. His war had yet to begin, and there's plenty of harm and pain that Skywalker and the people he cared about would go through. Skywalker would be his. It was inevitable. He was angry that the Jedi had rescued Skywalker's mother, contrary to his expectations, preventing her from suffering further on Tatooine, and the blame of any indirect harm done to her now would likely fall on the Republic rather than the Jedi, who had already done what they could for her. He had hoped that Darth Sidious could have taken her or at least killed her to affect Skywalker. It was the reason he sent him to Alderaan. But instead, he had failed and brought the Jedi's attention to him, though he couldn't say he was disappointed in the results as he read the report. He would just have to wait and see how this situation unfolded.